Hey there.
Hello.
It's hard to believe that this is just a month. It seems like we're doing it more frequently, but it is just a monthly series.
Time has no meaning. It is a construct.
Yeah.
That's wonderful because actually I was tending to say as older as we become, it gets quicker and shorter and faster because we're facing end of life in 30, 40 years.
What a positive spin.
That's so great.
I really care about lifecycle management.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, but
nothing
I think there is something to say post-pandemic. We're all making fun of this poor girl that got trashed online for bringing up the painfulness of time blindness. She was being lazy. This is a real thing because we do so much online. I'm like, oh, we saw each other 6 months ago. It's like, Christian, that was 6 years ago. Like, oh, yeah.
This is the other day.
Welcome everyone to the latest episode of Guardians of Microsoft 365 Governance. We're on episode 17. Yeah, so this is a monthly webcast focused on the rapidly evolving and expanding Microsoft 365 governance story. Our goal is to share insights, best practices, and the latest information about new governance features and capabilities within Microsoft 365. And we're dedicated to everything governance within M365 ecosystem. So if you have questions or comments or thoughts on what we should cover or guests that we should have, please comment. There's a few things that have come out since then, and I like that Microsoft, for the MVPs, as the three of us are, they do have sessions that are focused on a lot recently on governance and compliance, and a lot always on security, but a lot going on. So that it's perfect that we get into this on our 17th episode with our former SharePoint MVP, longtime MVP, but now the CEO of governance-focused ISV Rencore, Matt Einig. Matt, I do the stage. There we go.
Hello.
Long
Good
time.
to see you again. Long time no see.
Well, excited to jump into this topic. I will let you introduce yourself a bit more. Like, we're specifically going to talk about mastering Copilot Studio governance, but of course, all governance topics, all things that are relevant in that discussion, feel free. But Matt, more of an introduction.
Hello, everyone. After 10 years, I had to hand in my MVP badge because I was no longer so actively involved, I guess, as I should have been. But yeah, this is how it goes at some point. Christian, Ragnar, and I know each other quite well from the past. So I think Christian, we'll go back at least 15 years or so.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And Ragnar, I don't know how long.
13, I think also 13, 14 years with the first version of SPF CUF, your former product, which I have deployed at one customer.
Yeah, those were the days when we were still on premises SharePoint. How about myself? I've been doing SharePoint for 21 years, no longer only SharePoint nowadays. We started off with a tool called SharePoint Code Analysis Framework, which was static code analysis for SharePoint customizations, primarily on-prem. We have been around for 12 years already, and about 4 years ago, how would you say nowadays, pivoted, is that a word?
Pivoted
into governance because we just saw in our customers that this is a big topic. We are a software vendor. We mostly help larger organizations. Our biggest customer has 250,000 employees. Smaller ones, like less than 1,000, with their governance needs in the Microsoft world. This means, on the one hand, collaboration governance, everything M365, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, Engage, what else? Planner, and so on. So
all the things.
Regarding collaboration, managing sprawl, provisioning, lifecycle management. Joy knows as much about it as I do. We are, I would say, market companions, Joy, right?
That's a good way of putting it. Yes, market companions. I like that.
And then we are also addressing governance in other areas. So one of them is Power Platform governance. So everything around Power Automate, Power Apps, AI, Data Wars, Fabric. And the third angle that we are tackling now is everything about Copilot, Copilot Studio, Azure AI Foundry, and so on. So what we're going to talk about today.
Well, look at the background of CAF. The journey that Microsoft has gone through around governance was a true Wild West. I mean, even before that sandbox solution, Microsoft trying to wrestle with this. How do we make it so people aren't in there customizing and breaking the platform every time. They weren't doing a great job at it. So the partners stepped in and said, hey, we've got various solutions for that process. The people that knew the technology said, hey, look, you can make up for a lot of the lack of features around governance by process, reviewing these things, looking at them, having discussions before you allow solutions in. And so if you go in and look at the timeline of governance inside the products, change. When Microsoft went to the cloud, pushed to Office 365, now Microsoft 365 as a platform, that automatically then broadened the scope of the solutions inside.
But the problems remain the same.
It's a good point, Joy. It's because of the people. Perfect solution, no customers, then you have problems.
Stop letting people touch it.
No, but if I think about it, like all the discussion about Copilot, for example, the challenges, this is not a Copilot problem itself. It's a data governance problem, and it's managing that chaos. And it was the same story 15 years ago when enterprise search was the big thing. Everyone was implementing enterprise search in their organization. I did a project at the time with Google Search Appliance. They wanted to index SharePoint with Google Search Appliance and things like that, crazy stuff that was going on. But it was the same problem at that time. It was like crap in, crap out. So if you don't clean up permissions, purge old data, unnecessary data, and Copilot is just making it easier. It's just the same problem, but it's just, you just don't need to know what you're looking for. It just tells you whatever it finds.
There's a great sticker out there. I don't know who created it. I have it on my traveling suitcase that I'll be bringing to events throughout the year. It has the poop emoji to flow to the Copilot logo and a Copilot colored poop emoji on the other side, the crap in, crap out, but it's now with AI.
Do we see some changes when you are comparing the governance for Copilot M365 and for Copilot Studio? The Copilot Studio started with you when Christian and myself were on board in your team. I have created the first report and dashboards for M365 Copilot. Do you see some changes compared to M365 Copilot and the governance for agents, which are baked from Copilot Studio?
Definitely. If you look at just Copilot, Microsoft is not making it easy for us with all this naming chaos there. But if you just look at Copilot, it has actually nothing to do with Copilot. It has to do with SharePoint, with OneDrive, with your teams, with the permissions, access reviews, sensitivity labels, and all that stuff. So it's basically cleaning up the data that Copilot is consuming. Whereas with Copilot Studio, we are not necessarily governing the data because the data is defined. You define which data sources you are pulling into your agent that you're building in Copilot Studio. It's the agent itself that needs to be governed. So the agent, where does it have access to? Who is it shared to? How is the risk profile of the agent? Maybe at the time of creation, throughout the life cycle, the risk might change. I just recently had a discussion with a larger pharmaceutical customer, and they said they have implemented a policy that a Copilot Studio agent, if it is exposed to more than 100 people, it needs special approval. But this is only checked on creation, not throughout the life cycle. So if it has on creation 99 people, all is great, and then you just share it with everyone in the organization, and suddenly nobody knows, but it's out there.
I say that once people understand how they're being measured, then they will modify their behavior to optimize towards that metric. It's similar with this. If they know that, hey, I've got to jump through additional hoops, they're just going to go and pilot it in a smaller group and then suddenly share it with other people, the company it takes off without having gone through that review.
It's also short-sighted. It's not governance if you're just implementing some rules on creation. You really have to manage the entire life cycle until it's gone. Also identifying when you want to get rid of it, no longer used, still producing costs, but no longer used, not providing any value, no adoption, then you want to get rid of it. But if nobody cares, then you will have agents.
Anytime we're sharing things or creating something, look at permissions and security, age-old challenges with sharing links. Like I could share with 2 people, but the link I used was everyone in the organization. Right. So today it is those 2 people. It was easier. It was the default. Or I set up a SharePoint site or a team but over time, the audience and the membership grows. Maybe not because I was trying to get under a limit from the day it started, but because this thing was meant to be used. So it's always tricky. The day of creation or the moment I share it, we almost have to anticipate that audience is going to grow over time. And that's
Exactly.
The disadvantage or critical point is with M365 Copilot, it was always a kind of flat rate, 30 euros per month, 28 euros here. But with the metered approach and the pay-as-you-go payment, it's different. So I see a lot of my customers who say, listen, I fully understand the value and the value proposition of agents. We get it. But if we cannot align and assign them to security groups or to M365 groups, everybody will see it. And then it's maybe going to be too expensive because everybody can see and access the agents. And then the costs are running out of control. And that's a different conversation like we had with the M365 Copilot, which was this all-you-can-eat thinking.
But it's not just costs running out of control. So another organization that I talked last week actually to, they have already 20,000 Copilot Studio agents. Can you imagine? Already 20,000. In 6 months, they buy message packs on the environments. They want to govern, they want to control, but also want to know when they reach a certain threshold of their quota, like 80% of their message pack, to decide, hey, it's crazy. Microsoft recently released that Copilot Control Center with Copilot Wave 2. That's great. But if you have 20,000 Copilot Studio agents, this is not really helping you because you need to automate that process behind it. You cannot just go into an admin center, see a grid, scroll, filter, and publish that one manually. This is not working at scale in organizations like that.
There is no lifecycle management for the agents. It's just the typical toggles like on and off features, but not really a lifecycle management.
And it goes even further now with the declarative agents. This is also a lot of fun. Declarative agents, a sneaky attempt to create Copilot adoption because you don't need a Copilot license. You can just, if you have an Entra ID and you have a Copilot chat, can go in there, create a declarative agent, and it's there. And it's there everywhere. People are just creating them. And then suddenly the price can be dialed up a little bit. And then adoption is there, stickiness for the entire Copilot ecosystem, if you want. So this is the next level sprawl that will happen, the chaos that will be created. I see quite the difference also in the approach. I'm in Germany as well, like Ragnar, and we Germans, typical stereotype German is quite risk averse. So the typical organization that I talk to in Germany is more like, I don't know, maybe we buy a Copilot license or 2 or maybe 5, but that's it. This is the kind of attitude here. And for them, governance is more like the insurance. I want to save my butt. If something goes wrong, then I can at least say, okay, I did everything that needed to be done in order to be on the safe side. And if I talk more to North American organizations, this is more like the Wild West approach. Let's try everything out and then
see what's
the data.
Well, I want to ask you that on that client as an example, Matt, like the client with 20,000 agents created, were they asking about lifecycle management? Were they looking and seeing, are any of these actually used? Are they were trying to put policies in place where you might say that, like, I know this is very much a parallel with the Power Platform solutions, where you could go in and look at a report and see, look, there are dozens of Power Platform solutions created in the last month by this one user, and not a single person has touched them. Is it an education thing? Are they just playing with it? Or we're paying for these premium connectors? Is anybody actually using these things? How productive is it? Should these be reviewed? Should we create a policy that after 60 days, after 30 days, if not a single person has used it, that it gets archived?
Right. Well, the flip side of that too. So we got that one citizen developer out there that built something amazing. And now everyone wants it. And now there's versions and variations all running under that single user account throughout the organization. So the agent trajectory feels very much like that Power Platform trajectory of what's the common sense? How are we going to manage these things? How do you find out if Diego's workflow is now in use with enterprise systems and nobody knew it?
Yeah, so Christian, to your question, yes, that's what they are looking for. Lifecycle management, preferably at scale without having to review. Also cleaning up automatically, if not used, as you mentioned, unpublish it. If nobody complains, delete it, just to clean things up. The other angle I hear a lot is, charging the departments for it, identifying who is, so basically classical chargeback within the organization. I don't care from an IT perspective. We just provide the infrastructure, but the cost centers producing the cost need to be charged. So creating that transparency for IT and delegating those costs to the different cost centers in the organization, that is a big interest that I see on the market in the larger organization.
I didn't even think about that angle, because if anybody has not had that experience of building an internal chargeback model, I'll say my experience is like limited success in other areas where they were trying to do like percentage of facilities and every aspect of that. But something like this with Power Platform, with Copilot, you could just look at it as who's creative, you know who's creating them, you know who's using them. And so whether or not you're on the pay-as-you-go, the consumption model, you could track and charge for that.
And actually count the messages, you know, the exact messages that are consumed. I wouldn't go that far, and that's also what I'm not hearing, like to charge the actual users who are consuming the agent. So let's say the HR department provides an onboarding agent or a travel agent, then they are the operator, or they are the ones who run this agent, so they need to be charged for it, and then they get that into their cost. This is how I see organizations are thinking about it. It's sometimes much less about the actual costs, it's just about who pays it.
Matt, would you be so kind and show us a little bit of your favorite reports and dashboards, how to control cost and agent sprawl, and how to find out which are the most active users and the less active? So a bit of adoption topics, cost topics,
of course I can show
excellence.
you something. Just bear in mind what I'm going to show you now is not live yet. This will go in preview in about a month. You will be able to try it out then. In fact, that's what we're currently working on.
Thank you for giving us a world premiere. That's highly appreciated.
An exclusive sneak peek, Guardians.
You're welcome. Joy, you have to look the other way, right? Because as market companion, you know.
Joy, la 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 la.
You're like,
Three monkeys.
This is friendly competition, and I don't. So, well, it will be public anyway, so it's fine. Totally fine. Also, different approach than Orchestra is having, I guess. And so every tool has its right audience and purpose. So
absolutely.
This is 100%.
Room for everyone.
So what you see now, this is Rencore Governance. For those who have seen Rencore Governance before, I know that Ragnar and Christian have. It looks a little bit different. Our Copilot Studio, or actually our AI governance module, will go hand in hand with a refresh. So you will see this homepage here, and you see already some new things. Copilot pay-as-you-go costs this month. You see a trend here, or Copilot costs for disabled user accounts. You see a risk matrix. So I just talked about risk before. Copilot agents can have different kind of risk profiles, how critical they are in regards of, for example, what data they have access to and how much data they have access to. And there's a probability associated with it that the risk actually happens. And that is, of course, how many people can actually use it. So if something is shared with everyone in the organization, then it has a very high probability that the risk will happen, considered to maybe only a handful of users. So, but if we go a little bit deeper, then you see already, for those who know Rencore Governance, we have loads and loads of more services in M365. So this is now filtered on what's relevant for Copilot and Copilot Studio. And if we go into Copilot Studio, you see, we'll get the environments, we get the pay-as-you-go plans, we get the knowledge, the triggers, the topics, we even get the conversations out there. Then you can filter the agents, for example, for autonomous agents, for the ones that are published. If I look inside the Copilot agents, we can see a list of all my agents, but with some additional data, which Microsoft doesn't want you to see so much, like how much messages they are consuming in a certain time, how much money those messages are costing, where they are deployed. And if I open one of those up, Let's go in and see, okay, this agent, for example, the employee onboarding assistant, isn't published. Everyone has access to it. So it is published to the entire organization. You see the consumption, where it's available. Is it available in Copilot or only where it gets invited, for example, a Teams channel? So you get a lot of additional information. But the interesting part is that you can actually see how everything is connected. So you see that that employee onboarding agent is actually pulling the knowledge out of a document library. I can look into what document library it is. This one is in the sales and marketing SharePoint side. I can see which actions that agent is using, which topics are defined, who is it shared with. I can look what that person who it has been shared with, what else the person has access to. And you can actually see also the conversation. So if I go into an individual conversation, I see this conversation consumed that knowledge. And I can look at the actual conversation. The conversations are anonymized. So I see the conversation has been happening in Microsoft 365 Copilot. If it would be in a Teams channel, that would be the Teams logo. And I see what has been talked about. So it's quite powerful what you can do there, what you can explore already. The story is similar if we go for SharePoint agents. A SharePoint agent is basically a filtered Copilot on SharePoint document library. And it's similar, you get where is that deployed, who has created it, who has modified it. And if you're familiar with governance, then you will know that you can just build policies on it. For example, limiting the users who can create Copilot agents, finding Copilot agents that lack authentication, agents that are published to Copilot, which are available in M365 Copilot, agents that have been published since 30 days that I want to clean up. So you get a lot of ideas what you can do. For example, which one did we have? Not published agents, for example. I see every Copilot agent where is published is false and it was created more than 30 days ago. This is a typical query. You can just activate an automation to automatically delete it. We ask for an approval from the creator beforehand. So if I just go into the automation, oh no, we don't ask for an approval here. Whenever a Copilot agent that is not published is violating that policy, then the agent gets deleted. And this is how automation in Copilot Studio governance could look like. Similar like what we do for Teams, for SharePoint, for files, for file sharings, and so on. So very flexible, building your policies. You can also report on everything, of course. So we can build Copilot reports, costs per month, per environment, or agents that cause the most build messages. So you can see that immediately the last 30 days, which are the really costly agents that we have. And you can also perform access reviews on agents, which is same topic, same old topic, wherever you do with SharePoint or Teams, you can build an access review and say every Copilot agent should have a review being executed. Then the agents will get reviewed by the creator in the Microsoft Teams app, so they can remove individuals who should no longer have access to that agent.
That's something else I love about this is that you can, because a lot of conversations I have with people is it's like, I want to go look at this Ragnar person creating a lot of these agents and go and look at what is Ragnar doing and see that, because that should be part of that discussion too. If you see a bunch of these unused agents, some that are violating policies or things, it could be that he's just learning how to build things and maybe just hasn't gone through an internal governance training to be aware of the right way to build certain things. So you can monitor that aspect of it, not just the solutions being built, and go have those conversations. That's part of a healthy governance organization, is that having those conversations with individuals and making sure that they're aware that the right way to go and build the things.
What we see in Power Platform, similar story basically. Yeah. Copilot Studio is originally Power Virtual Agents, part of the Power Platforms. Same challenges eventually. And just identifying somebody actively creating these things and then automatically informing them, hey, there is a community where you can exchange ideas. There is guidance how to build that. It's not just about regulating and putting the guardrails on, it's also about empowering the organization to leverage the AI tools. I think with AI, governance should no longer be that burden. Governance is a quite unsexy topic, to be honest. Not the most sexiest topic around there, right? But with the whole AI topic, governance is actually something that can be a massive enabler for business value, really enabling the organization to leverage AI and helping them to get the most out of it for the best ROI with the help of governance, setting up those guidelines, those boundaries, those processes behind of it to manage the AI adoption in the organization.
Yeah, and to also make better decisions. So the last 2 days, I was traveling to customer and delivering an M365 Copilot workshop. So it was actually, the agenda was planned like 2 days, only M365 Copilot. But then we discovered immediately that for these 3 main use cases, M365 Copilot is not the right choice. So we immediately completely changed the agenda and looked into Azure AI Foundry. And then we were playing around with some small language models like Phi. We're looking into the latest large language models like DeepSeek, ChatGPT 4.5 and Llama 3.4. So the latest ones. And then we did some comparison of quality, of costs, of latency, of throughput. Let's make sure to find out that our completely different use cases get different large language models. This story really resonated. They just need an Azure license. For each use case, they pick just a completely different large or small language model according to their needs. What we can do on the governance side is control it. So for example, in my mind, I've got a kind of governance policy, which says, listen, we want to make sure that for text, video, and image creation, this large language model is used. And for text summaries, we use this model, which is maybe much more cheaper. And then if people are using always for simple agents, the most expensive model, this would be a violation.
You know, I just had
a very complex Power Automate flow, which can be written much simpler because I got a better training in Power Automate. Then this would be also a violation, and I would fix it by writing a more efficient Power Automate flow.
You just gave me an idea for this, Ragnar. Just what you said there is like, you almost need to, you know how you could do that with your computer? You can put it on performance mode, energy saving mode.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's almost like there needs to be something where I can hold down the turbo button and it goes faster, paying more, but it's going faster.
You don't need the turbo button always. You just need it if you do video editing for a 1 hour video.
I wonder how many people still know the turbo button. You're just outing yourself, Christian.
Again, Matt, it's a Galaxy Quest reference. So hold down the turbo button.
So,
like, you don't know.
The turbo button on your first PC, did it bring from 33 megahertz to 66, or even was it even older?
Yeah.
Back to governance 101 is when to use what?
Yeah.
Helping users answer that question first clears the path. It doesn't solve all of governance. What is the right tool for the job?
It's putting up the guardrails so that people are, so then they can more about the harder questions.
And I think it's unfortunate right now too. Matt, you mentioned training and helping people figure out how to use these tools. I cannot remember where it was, but we talked about this earlier. The other day. I'm just going to say it was the other day.
Could have been a year ago. Could have been 2 days ago.
Could have been.
Who knows?
The customer I was talking to was saying that in their organization, training is seen as something that slows them down. That is a disservice because, you know, that old adage, you have to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. If you don't have a safe space to learn how to use these tools appropriately, that return on investment's never going to be what it could be for that organization at scale.
True.
I know we covered a lot of ground here. We're kind of at time, but Matt, really appreciate your time coming on and showing us the latest. Now we need to go and play with these tools for organizations that are moving from pilot to rolling out Copilot and starting to figure out the governance story internally. There's a lot to think about.
What I notice, a lot of organizations seem to have learned from the COVID days when they rolled out M365 or Teams in Europe. I see that they take a more measured approach and really plan. I was just the other day, on Monday, at a customer on site, They told me like COVID, yeah, they had 2019, they had a plan to move to M365 and everything was super planned out. And then they just threw the plan into the bin. And now they suffer the consequences on the collaboration end. That prevents them from Copilot adoption because they have all this chaos. They have old data, they have redundant data. They don't even know what is what. And it's extremely hard for them. And then they realize, okay, if we want to get this right in the future, we have to implement a clear plan, include clear policies, and enforce those policies with the help of a governance solution to succeed. And might sometimes slow things down, but a lot of organizations have realized that this is necessary, that they don't pay at the end. Cleaning up afterwards is always more costly than making sure you're building
better, because it's the same like living in your house, in your apartment, wherever you are. It always feels better when it's nice and clean.
It will never be nice and clean because those organizations are always changing and people come and go and reorgs and whatever. So there's always chaos that's getting created again and again. But I think it's not that different like when you look into software development. There's also this shift left, like the later you find a bug, the more costly it gets.
Yeah.
Like when you test
Great data
at
out
the
there.
end,
Exactly.
then you have to go to the beginning. You need to fix the bug. Then you need to go through all iterations to your deployments. If you find or prevent the bug at the beginning, you save all that overhead at the end. So the more you shift your effort left the beginning, the better you're off at the end, and the quicker you can innovate afterwards because your iterations become shorter at the end.
Matt, yeah, I think you said it earlier. It's like, and we've all had this conversation again and again. There's a noticeable difference over the last 2 years. Going to conferences, especially, companies are more aware that, hey, we can't just, it's not just this G word governance out there. They realize Copilot readiness is a real thing. It's the same principles of information management and governance that we've been talking about. I've been talking about since the mid 90s when I got into the space. The principles are the same, whether you're cleaning up your data, the lifecycle management, the governance of the solutions. On top of that, building an intranet or now building Copilot agents. That's why the conversations have been very robust, very healthy, because people are recognizing, hey, I actually need to do something this time.
Christian, I usually agree with your point at this stage, but now we have a different situations. We have Copilot agents, which are semi-autonomous or autonomous, and we have governance tools who have automations. So we see that two automation parts are working with each other. In the past, we had SharePoint servers and manual reports and manual dashboards, but now governance tools with automations, agents with, it's going to be very interesting how these two agents.
But I'm talking about fundamentally, they're still consuming the data that you control, and you have to clean up your data. Period.
I just wish they wouldn't call it readiness, because readiness somehow implies that you do something and then you're ready.
When you're done, you're ready.
But you're never done. Readiness is an ongoing process. I think Microsoft didn't do us a favor here in that way, that they put that term Copilot readiness out there and pay a lot of companies to get consultants to become Copilot ready.
How about this? Copilot, you can prepare all you want, but you'll never be fully ready.
Let's like specifness. We're all pushing that rock.
You were reading in my mind, Joy. Copilot 54. Exactly, the Greek version. Yeah. That's
well,
how
hey, Matt, really appreciate you joining the show this month. And for everybody else, thank you for watching. Of course, we'll be back with episode 18 in June with another guest and another topic. So thanks all, and we'll see you next time.
Having me.
Bye.
Always a pleasure.